welcome everyone. Thank you for coming and thank you for having us. It's kind of exciting, I know, at least for me and maybe you guys too, to get back on campus and be in a classroom. It's been a while, but my name is Jason Embick. I'm going to moderate this panel here, and I'll maybe just first start off by having the panelists introduce themselves. Brandy, you want to introduce yourself first?
Sure. I'm Brandy Anderson. I work for Tote Maritime. We are down the street in the old Russell building on 8th Street, and so it's nice to have a short jaunt over here. I worked for Tote for about 8 years, and I am really happy to be here with you today. So thanks for having me.
My name is Jake Murphy. I'm a business consultant with Ernst & Young. I actually just hit my 2-year mark this month at Ernst & Young, and that's 2 years pretty much to the day being removed from UW-T. So I'm happy to be back, and it seems like I was just here. I probably had a class in this room too. I'm pretty sure.
My name is Jared Hewish. I'm a tax partner at KPMG. Spent 20 years doing taxes, primarily corporate. I've been in a lot of different positions and have worked both in the US and in the UK, so a little bit of international experience as well. And happy to be here.
Then, as I mentioned, I'm Jason. I'm the corporate controller at TrueBlue, which is headquartered down the street here in Tacoma, although we've been remote for the last 2.5 years. I actually stopped by the office this afternoon. It's kind of ghost town. But I've been in that role about 2.5 years. Prior to that, I was at the Walt Disney Company, which I'm sure all of you have heard of. I was the segment controller, film studio, and then also had some roles in corporate and media networks. And then before that, I spent first part of my career, almost 10 years in public accounting on the audit side with Deloitte. So happy to be here. And just maybe a quick show of hands. We're trying to gauge the audience, right? So we'll do, how many undergrads are in the room? How many graduate students? A fair number of both. How many are studying accounting currently? Like you declared that major. How many are maybe thinking about accounting, but not quite sure? All right, we have to convince 2 people. So. At least majority of the audience is already there. So maybe, you know, this is all about kind of successful careers in accounting, you know, this symposium. So I thought maybe I'd start off with the panelists. I'll throw a question out there just to get us started. But I do want to make this interactive. Like, so if you guys have questions, I have a few that I can tee up pretty easily, but we want to, you know, what's on your mind as well. So I'll start with the sort of first question, and then just raise your hands, or we'll go from there. So what easy one, I guess. What made you guys decide to go into accounting? And maybe to build onto that, what has made you stay in accounting?
I'll take that first one. I was originally a science major. And then about my sophomore year, I realized I would need a PhD in order to make any money doing what I was doing. And that debt to income ratio was unfavorable. So well, with that in mind, maybe I should go into business. And I was in an accounting class one day, and I went to Oregon State, and there was a whiteboard at the front of the room, and the professor was like, just writing down silently some things, that I saw NFL at the top and accounting, and we're like, what is he doing? He said, these with a 4-year degree are the top money-making things that Oregon State graduates have done. And the top one was the NFL. And I don't know if it's obvious or not, but a linebacker, I'm not. So the second one was accounting. And I thought, aha, that I can do. So it's not a romance story, but it is practical. And that's why I stuck with accounting.
So for me, it's a long journey. I didn't intentionally go into accounting or even leave the military. I was in the military for 10 years in the Army, and I got medically separated, so I really didn't have a choice. It was kind of, you can't do your job anymore, so you got to go figure it out. And so my first idea was electrical engineering. The pay was great, but it scared me the most because every time I've worked with electricity, I've electrocuted myself. One way or the other. Like, one of my passions is working on cars, and it's not a very charged electrical system, but I'll do it. I'll zap myself. So I was like, I'm gonna conquer this fear. And so I went head first into electrical engineering, and realized my math skills were not, on par, being 15 years removed from school itself and taking any sort of college courses whatsoever. And then I got motivated by an accounting professor. His name's Len Heritage. Some people might have had him here. Yeah, I had him at Tacoma Community College, and he put a bug in my ear, and from there it just grew. That seed grew and grew and grew, and that's where I'm at today. And I'm glad I listened to his advice, and he wrote on the board similar, some of the top paying professions. And I was like, okay, if, I kind of know, I looked around and I was like, okay, if these people can make, I can make it. I can make it. And Len was he's a really cool person as, individual. And, I was like, well, I could be like this guy. So I went that route.
So I thought I was going to be a dentist when I was first started college. I was like, my uncle's a dentist. I have friends who are dentists, and you know what? They work like 25 hours a week and make a lot of money. So I'm like, I'm going to be a dentist. And so I started with that target in mind. As a freshman, I started taking a lot of science classes, and the science classes I was good at, but I wasn't excellent at them. And to make it through dental school, you really have to be excellent at science. So then I thought, well, what am I going to do? Okay, I'm going to switch to electrical engineering. So I started taking engineering classes. I started taking math classes. I took this advanced calculus class, completely failed it. I mean, like full on F, failed it. Retook it. I got 100% on every test when I retook it. So I'm able, but I found that I just didn't have a passion for engineering after all. And so I went through a mentorship program, and I met a man who was he was the assistant hospital administrator at a hospital near the school where I was going. And I got along with him well. And I'm like, okay, how do I become a hospital administrator? He said, well, first thing you should do is you should get an accounting background. I'm like, all right, I can do that. So I signed up for accounting classes, and it clicked. I really enjoyed it. I liked it. And I said, okay, well, after the accounting classes, what do I do? He's like, well, then you need to get a master's in public administration. You can become an assistant administrator, an administrator. Here's your path. And so I'm diving into the accounting program and loving it. I'm like, actually, I just want to be an accountant. And so I ended up focusing in tax and got a master's with a tax emphasis, and started out of school with Deloitte, where I worked for 20 years. And then after 20 years, 4 months ago, I switched to KPMG. I'm a tax partner at KPMG now. So I would say it was a meandering path to get there. But once I started a full-time job in public accounting, I loved that as well. And have had opportunities to do a lot of different roles, learn a lot of different things in accounting.
Any questions? Or I can throw out more.
Oh, you gotta have questions, guys.
Oh, what topics? Throw out a topic or a question. Yeah.
I have a question about automation in the next few years. I asked a finance panel about the same thing. They pretty much said you can't eliminate judgment from the idea of finance and business. I know it's like intrinsic, so I was just wondering what's your opinion on like the AI systems versus what humans are going to be doing in accounting?
Yeah, I can take that one. So at KPMG, one of the things that we do is technology. And we do technology to drive accounting. And so actually one of the professionals that I was talking to last week, like her path is that she got a dual degree, a master's in accounting and data management. And the combination of the two is what she's working in right now. She started with a practice of ours that's called Ignition. And in Ignition, they're all about automating processes that go into accounting. And so I'll tell you a really boring story, but it connects with automation, okay? So for years, all companies that have foreign bank accounts, they have to file a piece of paper with the IRS that says, I have a bank account, here's how much I have, here's the bank, and here's the account number. And it's just a simple information form. And like me as an accountant, I've spent hours just filling out those forms. Well, one of the things that our Ignition team has built is they have built a system where essentially the data entry happens, right? But then there's a bot that automatically populates the form, prints the form, and files the form. And it's taken, what would have been a large number of hours and compress them into a slick process that's mostly automated. And that's like a tiny example. There's much bigger examples as well, but automation, data analytics, those things are becoming core to what people do in accounting now.
Yeah, and just to add to that, you might not be able to remove those eyes on, 100%, but the automation helps mitigate the risk for a lot of what it's doing. So to touch on that as well, SOX compliance, Sarbanes-Oxley, it's a lot of controls, it's a lot of processes, and a lot of that is becoming automated now, but there's still that physical touch that still has to be there for a review or a few sets of reviews, whichever the case may be, but it definitely helps cut down time and the very repetitive tasks that you can think of, automation, sampling, all of that right now. And it's not really going to slow down any way, shape or form, but at the same time, there's nothing really to worry about. Accounting's still growing massively and it's not going to slow down anytime either.
To your earlier point, you cannot replace judgment. So the thing that data analysis allows us to do is to not do the busy work that we used to spend so many hours wasting our time doing. So we can apply our business knowledge to more higher level thinking, which is nice.
I think just to add, and totally agree with everyone, if you look at sort of the entry level accountant today versus 20 years ago, what they're doing is a lot different. I mean, when I started, it was, here's a big report, they slap it down there and put this report, right? You had to literally manually add it up. That was kind of what you were doing in public accounting, right? A lot of just manual ticking and tying of spreadsheets, and it's probably really dating myself, but we barely had laptops, right? It was a new thing. Now it's, the skill set, if you come with an accounting degree and the sort of curiosity, and not even necessarily you have to know everything about how to program or do this, but just having that natural curiosity of hey, I need that data, but let me play around with that data set. Let me play around with this new tool. That's super critical. And I think it's, definitely will help your success, not just entering the workforce, but kind of succeeding. It's changed a lot.
And all of our tools now, they involve some form of automation. Like KPMG, the primary software that drives our compliance is called the Business Tax Engine. And it's about setting up the programming so that things are mapped from the trial balance to go to the tax return. It automates more than half of the calculations that people used to have to do manually. You take an export from that into our compliance software, and there's a connection between the calculation and the compliance software. And everything involves some form of automation in what we do on a daily basis. And, especially for you learning a little bit about database softwares, whether it's Alteryx, Power BI, that can be a real leg up in your first place in your career.
I saw a hand up over there. Yep.
More simple questions. From the route of you guys choosing accounting and staying with accounting, how did you have to figure out if you wanted to public, private, or even government accounting?
Great question. Start.
I'll start. My professors told me I would do audit in public accounting. It was just sort of a pipeline, and I'm glad they did. It changed the way I thought. Public accounting audit teaches you to not take things at face value. When you're doing inquiry and analytics, you get an answer from the client. And at first I would be like, oh, goody, I'm going to fill in this blank. I got an answer, moving on. It's no, sweetheart. Can you back it up? Can you prove that what the client said is reasonable, looks reasonable? And that took a little bit, and it was hard to go from the academic setting of a classroom into more of that intellectual curiosity. Is this correct? Why am I comfortable with this? And then I didn't enjoy audit after a period of time and moved to the scintillating Department of Tax and loved tax. And then I moved to international tax because I got an opportunity in a different part of the country. And so you can't really tell. I wouldn't have figured that any of those things would have happened past step one. So it's a good question. I'm sure it's different for each of us.
Yeah, so I've been in public accounting for 20 years. And, I'll give you the difference that my friends tell me who have worked at private companies. In public accounting, at least for me in tax, I'm gonna have anywhere from 1 to 50 clients. Right? And all of those clients have hard things to work on. And they're not asking me the easy questions, right? They're asking me the hard questions. And so I get to see from 45 clients all the hardest tax questions that come up. And what that does is it just builds my skill at a pace that's quicker than I think I could have learned anywhere else. Now, my friends who have left public accounting, who have gone to work in corporate accounting, they tell me that there's a different side that I've missed. Right? And the different side that I've missed, they say they have time to spend heads down, focused on a single problem for a long period of time, and they're able to dig deep on that. They said that they sometimes got frustrated with the pace of public accounting and how you get a question, you answer it, you move on to the next one. Get a question, you answer it, you move on to the next one. You know, in corporate accounting, they've told me that they have more time to spend on one problem, get down into the details of it, develop a solution fully in a way that they weren't allowed to in public accounting. I've never touched government accounting, so I can't speak to that, but that's what people have told me and what I've experienced from public.
For me, it was just exposure in public accounting, just because it was a new field for me. It was just a whole new way of life. And I didn't, still, you know, every day is a different day, right? But it could change tomorrow. And if it does, it does. You just have to stay fluid, right? But for me, it was overall exposure. And I didn't come in as an accountant or tax necessarily or anything like that. So as a business consultant, you can kind of go under a lot of different realms. And I got pulled in under IT risk, which is essentially IT audit. So it's two channels that it operates in. There's like just a general sector, and then there's publicly traded companies or channel 1 clients. And so I got put on channel 1 clients and just got a whole bunch of different industry exposure to see how everything worked and to interact with people. And that was just, for me, my favorite part of it. Favorite part about public accounting anyway is just the overall interaction with everybody who you get to work with, and different teams, and different environments, software, you name it, it's always changing. So if it's one of those things that, for me, if you like to experience new things and, you know, within a left and right limit, and there's other professionals who can help you, it's the best place for it. I think you can really kind of explore who you are or who you want to be and try new things in public accounting versus, you know, that silo that you'd be in the private sector, potentially. So I dove all in.
I mean, I started public accounting too, and people always ask me that similar question, right? But when I started, the only way to get your CPA was to do a public accounting firm. Now there's other options. And, you know, I'm not trying to, I probably, in all honesty, would have chosen differently. Like if I were today, I think, you know, I agree with you guys. It's definitely a good experience going the public route. But there are other options. So if it doesn't work for you, I mean, truly, we hire, you know, some students right out of college, right? And they can still get their CPA, and it's just a different track. So you know, I would suggest, you know, I'm sure on campus you'll get the, you know, all the firms in here, and you can really learn about them and do an internship, and that's all great. But if you're kind of curious, maybe talk to, you know, somebody. There's, you know, alumni of the school or whatever that's gone kind of the straight private route, and just ask them and see if that's right for you.
Everybody likes to talk about themselves.
Yeah.
So you can ask, hey, how did you do that? And you can message someone cold shot on LinkedIn, and they'll probably tell you their life story.
And I will tell you, public is kind of like, everyone has a slightly different experience because it all depends on what clients you put on. Some people will tell you, oh my God, that was the worst experience ever in those 2 years I was there. And others are like, yeah, I love it. 'Cause they love it. Sometimes clients you get picked on or put on can dictate that.
I will say, I never worked for a governmental entity, but I did audit many of them. And, you know, as you've maybe picked up, public is very fast paced typically, and industry is a bit less so, but still gives you a lot of different things to chew on. Government uses fund accounting, so that's different, but it's kind of cool in different ways. It's like thinking about buckets, you know, and if that clicks with you, if you've taken a class or in your CPA prep classes, if fund accounting lights you up, definitely give it a go, because I've worked with really solid people in the governmental, you know, in counties and things like that, and it is a bit more steady. So there's a different energy there. I'm not saying that there's no stress there at all, because there is at some point, but it's a different pace.
So what you're saying is you're gonna work more hours in public accounting.
I mean, just billable or?
It's probably true. You're gonna work more hours in public accounting. Like, yeah, among those three options, public accounting is known for having the peaks during the busiest times that can be in the 60 to 80-hour range, with 55 being mandatory.
But so is your learning curve. It's really steep. It's good.
But, Jared, you sort of touched on this, and I've, been now in both worlds, right, public and private. There is different opportunities in private, right, that you don't get it especially in audit, right? Audit, you're coming in there for a few months and you're telling them what's wrong and, hey, you go fix this, but you're never the one to have to fix it, right? Or you're never the one that is implementing something, a new system, right? You're the one coming in there and testing it. So it's a much different experience. A lot of what I do today is just making sure, all of our wheels are oiled and greased and making sure the machine is working and the systems are all talking to each other. And there's a lot of like coordination, blocking and tackling. And, tomorrow my boss might call me and say, oh, we're acquiring this company. You got to work on this transaction, right? Or something. There's a lot of different things. So.
And to that point, I don't think that coming from public is better. It's just different.
Yeah.
There are a lot of things in my current role that I coming from the outside in, having that mindset does me a bit of a disservice compared to some of my coworkers who worked in AP first, worked in AR, had a good understanding of how the systems work together. And I really like pairing with those coworkers because together we're really strong. But just to be clear, just because we came from public doesn't mean it's better. I don't.
I think, Brandy, you kind of touched on this, and maybe Jared, you've been in public for a while, but it's not always been the same thing, right? You've had to experience different. I think you kind of alluded that in your intro, maybe. But
Yeah,
so want to expand on that.
So, part of it just happened, and part of it was me making choices about what I wanted to work on, right? So the times when it just happened, like I started at Deloitte in their Reno office, and they closed the office. Well, that kind of happened to me, and so I ended up transferring to Las Vegas, which was an easy thing. That ended up changing completely what I worked on, because when I was in Reno, I worked mostly on real estate partnerships. And when I transferred to Las Vegas, what do you think of when you see Las Vegas? Big casinos, right? High-rise towers. Well, those are all owned by corporations. So all of a sudden in Las Vegas, I was introduced to this new world of corporate America. And actually, I loved doing taxes. And so I ended up shifting, like my first 3 years, I did mostly partnerships. And after about the end of my third year, I shifted to where I did entirely corporate tax work. And there was a point after 6 years in my career where someone came to me with an opportunity and said, hey, do you want to learn about how to report international tax operations of US companies? I'm like, yes, I don't know enough about that. And so for a year, my entire focus was international tax. It's a separate section of the tax code. It's entirely different calculations. It's things that I hadn't done before. Well, I wanted the opportunity to learn, to grow. And so even after 6 years, I was able to shift what I did. And after a year of doing that, an opportunity came up to work in London. Well, just personally, professionally, I have always wanted to take my family overseas. I wanted them to have the life experience of living outside of the US. And I wanted myself to have the life experience of working in another country. And so when the UK opportunity came up, I immediately applied. My wife, she was really excited when I came home and told her, and go through an application process. It takes months. And finally, I get the job offer. And so I go home and I tell my wife, I got the job. And she looked at me and said, well, we can't do that. I said, well, what do you mean we can't do that? You were so excited for me when I came home and told you about the opportunity, and I've been working towards this for months. She said, well, I didn't think you'd actually get the job. I'm like, oh, yeah, thanks for the vote of confidence. So we talked till 3 in the morning. I think I just wore her down. And finally, she's like, okay, we can take our children. They were 5, 7, and 9, and we can move them to schools. Like, we're gonna do it. And we did, and it's one of my favorite times in my working career being in London. I had a fabulous professional experience. I worked with companies that were doing IPOs, companies that were doing debt offerings, like, that's hot stuff. And then I also worked with some of the biggest companies in the world who were reporting to the SEC. So I was working with Vodafone, WPP, the National Bank of Greece, the Bank of Scotland, the Royal Bank of Scotland. I was working with Jaguar Land Rover, right? And so it was a great professional experience. And then personally, we lived in Europe. We got to go to castles every weekend. It was amazing. And coming back to the US, I was kind of in a national role there in London. So I decided that coming back to the US, a soft landing would be going to the Washington National Tax Practice, where essentially that's the ivory tower of the people who are thinking the deepest about accounting. So I was there for 2 years and I was writing white papers, I was writing trainings, I was on calls with the partners from across the world who had problems that they didn't know how to solve. And I was on the team that was helping to give suggestions about how to do the accounting correctly. And from there, I came here to Seattle. I love the business culture in Seattle. We've got really strong developed businesses. We also have startup businesses. And the mix of that is an exciting place to be. And so I've been here for 8 years. So every time, sometimes looking for opportunities, sometimes looking for learning, sometimes just wanting a life experience. But all of that was within public accounting. And there's a lot of opportunity to just do different things during your career. You should never feel locked in. You can redirect, learn something new, and really be successful.
Thank you. Other questions, topics? Go here and then you next.
Throughout my research, it's very clear that a lot of accountants have a master's degree and have completed their CPA license. I'm kind of very hesitant to double down on that kind of investment at this time. So I kind of want to hear a few experiences of either yourselves or peers that you've worked with about practicing to perform accounting in any environment and how they were able to accomplish that, and then maybe later invested their time into becoming a CPA.
I don't have my master's. I graduated with my bachelor's from here, and I just hustled. Now it sounds weird to say, but I proved my worth, and I, don't have any intention of getting my CPA because that's not where I'm working in. That's not the space that I'm in. I'll maintain my continuing professional education to make it so I could get my CPA license if I applied for it, right? But so I'm a technical program manager right now. As a business consultant. Like I said, I was doing IT audit and I transferred out of that. It wasn't for me, didn't like it. I do like investigating and looking into everything. It's really cool to do that, but I don't like walking into every room and everybody hating me just because of my time. And, I worked internal audit for about 2 years at Tacoma Public Schools, and all we did was try to help. And it's like, hey, I'm here to help. And they're like, get out, So I just wanted to be welcomed. And I thought that would be a good thing. So, I transferred over to transformation design and execution, which is the practice I'm in now. And I work with a lot of big companies, like right now, currently I'm working with Lyft as a TPM, helping with the financial transformation. So I'm working with Oracle support experts, Oracle experts. I work with all the lead engineers and the CTO as well. I still report to a manager, and manager reports up, et cetera. There's a chain of command there, but the environment changes all the time. It's great. It's amazing. I have no intention of sitting down to try to get my CPA. There are milestones depending on where you're at. Whichever practice, wherever you want to work, if you become a manager, you might need XYZ certification or, professional certs or whichever it may be. So, if I need those, I'll go get them and just make it happen because I enjoy it. I haven't been able to move around very much yet, but I'm planning on it. And, time off is there. We work a lot, but I definitely have had a lot more time off than I've had in a lot of other places I've worked. It's just like the Army, right? No time off there. But, tomorrow I don't work tomorrow. I took the 4-day weekend just to take it because I wanted to. And they're like, that's fine, and that's great for me. And, I just want to keep doing that route and maybe I'll change it. Maybe I'll change my mind. And, I was a couple classes away from my finance degree as well. And I've always thought about going back to finance and then going that route. So But I mean, I don't know if that answers your question, but okay, cool.
I think it's a
Hope so.
wise question, honestly, because when you're in school, like I said, I chose accounting for practical reasons, but here you learn a lot about theory. But when I graduated, I had no idea what I was doing when I started my audit career. And you would do yourself a good favor by not expecting yourself to know what you're doing. And it is a lot of investment if you're looking at a master's straight in, still not having any practical experience. And, the firms are largely rated on how many CPAs they have working there. So they put a lot of pressure on us to get your CPA quickly. And on one hand, it is nice while you're still in the habit of studying to just knock it out if you can. I, however, was in my 20s in fun places and lacked the discipline required to do that. I'm at low risk of having a midlife crisis, and that is good, but it took me, I think, until I was about 30 and married and in a town that wasn't a lot of fun for me personally. And then once I was there, then I knocked out all 4 sections really quickly. But I'm just being honest, I'm not saying that's what you should do. But I don't think it's helpful to tell people, oh yeah, you're gonna do this and then you're immediately gonna pass and then you're gonna get your master's and your life will work out fine. That's not necessarily the best answer, especially if you start in the industry and then you don't like it. And then you're saddled with the debt of an MBA or, the time sink or whatever it is. So yeah, listen to yourself, for sure.
Yeah. Part of it depends on what you want to do. Like if you want to be in audit, if you want to be in tax, you have to get a CPA, period. You have to get a CPA, right? So what does that mean? Well, it means you have to have 140 credit hours plus enough accounting credits to be able to sit for the CPA exam. And you have to be willing to put in the time to do that. In terms of, do you have to have a master's? No, you don't. Does it give you all those credit hours plus a certification plus a path to apply and get your foot into the door of a lot of places? Absolutely. Like it does. Have I seen people who come in with a bachelor's and enough credits to sit for the CPA exam? And they apply, they interview well, they're able to get in, and then they sit for the CPA exam after they start in accounting and are successful? Absolutely. So is a master's required? No. Does it help get your foot in the door? Absolutely. And if you're going to be in audit or tax, you have to have enough credit hours to get the CPA license.
The CPA will never hurt you, like it'll only benefit you. But I agree, it's like, it depends on kind of what you want to go. I mean, if you want to get to a controller like I'm doing, I mean, that's pretty much a no-go if you don't have it. But, to get to CFO, you don't necessarily need it. A lot of CFOs come from like strategy or finance where they don't necessarily, they know enough about accounting to be dangerous, but they're not also. Right, they have me on, so but that's my primary responsibility, making sure the books are correct, right? And they're very unlikely to hire somebody that doesn't have CPA or at least that background.
Yeah, and if you, like for your job, like that's just not required. Like, so there are a lot of consulting jobs, systems, technology, automation, where accounting is not necessarily core to what you do.
It is a door opener. I needed it to get jobs, but I've never signed with CPA, ever.
I got a meet and greet once with the head of Disney's television studios because he was a CPA. He still kept it active. He had no reason to. Obviously pivoted quite a bit in his career. You had a question there.
Yeah. So my question was like, public firms have a lot of hours to work, right? And private sector is less number of hours. So my question is that in form of opportunity for the employees, which sector have more opportunities for their employees? Public firm or private sectors?
Professionally or like, more opportunities to grow professionally? or-
Professionally.
I have highly successful driven friends that are in both places. So, I can't say that there are great opportunities in both.
I will say in the fake practice that I was working in under the IT audit, there was a lot of overturn. And so there was a lot of opportunities for advancement. But that's not necessarily the greatest thing because, you know, we've all had leaders that didn't know what they were doing one way or the other, and we've paid for it, right? So, but, you know, there is a lot of overturn and there's, you know, there is that opportunity and you can make a case to promote yourself. I'm not necessarily sure how it is in the private sector, but if you feel like you have a case that you can make or a client that you can bring in or some value added that you can do to the firm, then they'll recognize that and, you know, hopefully promote you or, you know, whatever the case may be.
Due to the nature of public where you frequently have more clients that you work on in a short period of time, it gives you exposure and some more understanding of, you know, if I'm not sure, what does you know, this industry feel like? You know, what is construction like? What's distribution like? What's, you know, and private doesn't give that to you. So if you're not sure, that's where I think public might have a leg up.
And I don't want to give you the impression that a job in the corporate world is not a lot of hours. They have busy times too, guys.
Month-end close.
Month-end close every month, quarterly close every 3 months, year-end close every year-end, and then project-based. You know, if you're working on a business, like a deal, right? You're probably full steam ahead trying to get that acquisition closed, doing the diligence, and there's no 40-hour weeks.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. I worked a ton of hours at Disney. It was all a good experience. Like I got to be part of the Lucasfilm acquisition team, right? I was up there doing that. I couldn't tell Soul for 6 months and it's like, it was hard, but, but yeah, that was a ton of hours. And then before I left Disney, they acquired Fox, right? And those are things you just find, you're like, hey, congratulations, right? You're gonna go work on this. That's a lot of work, but very rewarding, right? That stuff doesn't come at you like all the time or very rarely, but yeah, that's
Yeah.
I would say I worked probably equally the same amount of hours there as I did at Deloitte.
And how cool to say that you worked on the acquisition of Lucasfilms for, like, you brought in the Star
There's a
Wars
chapter in
franchise.
Bob Iger's book. It talks about the secret deal team going up there because the previous deal where they bought Marvel, it got leaked. And so we had like, I mean, it was like spy-like, right? We had like undercover stories. And so if anyone, they didn't have my name in the book, but if you read it, that was us.
That was That's pretty cool.
Question.
Yep.
It's totally out of, but I wanted to know if any of you that worked in public have any experience with nonprofit accounting. That's currently where I am, but I'm struggling because a lot of what I know is corporate based or small business. So any advice or how your experience was?
So just to clarify, you have a job or an internship?
I have a job, yeah,
Okay.
in a nonprofit, small nonprofit that just received their C3 status, so we're transitioning.
I worked in nonprofit tax for a fair bit of time. And the thing about it is that it's rewarding. You get to work with a lot of nonprofits and I loved that about it. Nonprofit tax, however, is unique. It's very unique. It's difficult to go from the rest of tax season into nonprofit because there's like another deadline. You know, you've got business and then individual and then nonprofit. It's like I had to pick one if I wanted to live a life. But in the forms are just from a compliance perspective, it's a different animal, you know, than the others. But
Yeah, so
accounting experience.
So at KPMG, we just hired Kat Okamoto. And she, like, her full-time gig is working doing taxes for not-for-profits and foundations. And sometimes she advises on grants that they're applying for. She also does some of the tax reporting and compliance. She does some of the business process consulting. So she's in tax, but she does things that also include not tax. And you know, that there's great opportunities and great careers to be had. Anything you're passionate about, you can find an opportunity for.
It's hard to leave that organization I work for because I started a year ago where they had just applied for their C3 status and they got approved this last August. And so I've helped change things, but now we're getting into the nitty gritty of like, okay, well, we really need to start filing on 990 and getting all of that, and kind of, they're trying to move away from their fiscal agent. And so they're relying on me to guide them. I'm like, I don't know. Like, I can help you, but I can't help you at the same time. Like, I can be a voice. So it's just,
No matter what you guys choose, there's a lot of times you're gonna not know.
Yeah.
No matter, I've had that a lot of my career. They're like, hey, I remember an accountant, and I was in audit, right? And they said some small client needed a tax provision prepared. I'm like, here, like, I have no idea even where to start. I've never done one of these, like, so I called my tax friend, they help me out, but, yeah, sometimes it's an opportunity, right? Like, I think maybe you can become the expert, right? And use that to your advantage.
That's right. Yeah, and we get, like in public accounting, we get paid to learn, right? Because a client asks a question and I'll tell them, I don't know, but I'm gonna find out for you. And sometimes that finding out means that I'm reading the code, the regs, the case law, and then I'm finding an answer for them. So I'm spending the time that they don't want to spend to give them an answer. Sometimes that's me, right? And sometimes it's me then, after I do that research, calling up one of our national experts and saying, all right, I'm reading the code, the regs, the case law. I think this is the right answer. It's a complex situation. Is that right? And they'll redirect me. They'll tell me, yep, right on, go ahead and reply to the client. But yeah, most of the time, the questions that clients are asking, they're not the easy questions that have obvious answers, and we're doing the research to figure out those answers and getting paid for it.
I didn't mention in my intro, but I also, for Deloitte, similar to Jared, went to their national office. And, I was like 6 years out of college, and you're getting these like questions from the biggest of clients and the most complex issues, and you're the one that has to research it. You're like, it's pretty intimidating at first, and then you kind of figure out how to do it. But national office. I saw a hand.
Yeah.
Right here.
I was wondering if you guys could just give like the pros and cons between tax and audit. It seems like from what I've heard that audit doesn't have very many like pros.
I thought the same thing when I started in tax. That's the reason I started in tax.
Well, I've done both, so I disagree. There's a lot of pros. It's just type 2 fun sometimes. Type 1 fun being it's always fun, and type 2 being, oh, I'm glad I did it, but hiking that mountain sucked at the time. I think the most valuable thing I got from audit, which has served everything else I did after that, was teaching you how to think as an accounting professional. Having some professional skepticism is invaluable. Learning how to read financial statements, whether you're in business or just an investor, knowing what questions to ask, how to interact with different kinds of people. It really is a unique area that I'm really grateful for, and I wouldn't have replaced that experience. I wouldn't have gone, even though I liked tax better, I would not have redone my career to do tax only because of how it shaped my thinking. Now, tax is cool because accounting gives you the pretty report and you can just take it and do stuff with it, right? You get to be plus clients like tax people more, right?
You can save us money.
Yeah. Auditors give you a bill and say, yes, your balance sheet looks reasonable-ish. And, but then tax, hopefully you'll find strategies to save money and you can become more, business partners, and you get stuck in better rooms than the auditors get stuck in. So, but giving them a deliverable that wasn't theirs to begin with is satisfying too.
So being maybe start out with auditing and then go into tax. Like a good idea, or?
I liked it, but if you get that opportunity.
Did you mentioned you were in IT audit for a while, and what did you like about it? What were the pros?
So for me, for IT audit, it's predictable in the sense that I would work forever. And into the grave. So no, it's not that bad. For me, what I liked about it was procedural, and it's very easy to follow procedures, right? For me, military guy, it was very easy for me to do it. So I kind of applied that same logic to it and realized that, okay, this clicks really easily, so I'm gonna run with it. And I just kept going and going and going. And what made it bad was that I call it reward punishment, is I was doing like an impressive enough job to get recognized, but at the same time, they just gave me more work. So it went from, I was on one client to the end of the year 6. And, you know, at the end of the year for IT audit, and it's a little bit of a busy season right there. And it really drug me down. It was too much for me. So I said, I applied for a transfer and went that route, and it worked out, luckily, but it doesn't work out for everybody. But I was gonna say that I do know some people, I think it was Deloitte at the time, who were doing a rotational internships that they do. I believe it starts, UI was doing it for a while too, but it starts off like your junior year, you'll be in auditing, and then, progressing through tax and accounting and whichever it may be. Maybe going 2 weeks here and there. It's a good way to get exposure though. You will never see like much of the iceberg by doing that, but you'll get a little bit of a taste of it, enough to sink your ship or to keep you going, whatever you want to do. But because there's so many nuances in all of tax and accounting, it's, if you're not in a good spot within your field, you can always pivot to another spot within your field and make your careers, you're in charge of your career, you're in charge of your opportunities, and you permit what you promote. So if you want to keep getting the same sort of, lack of better words, not the greatest clients, then they're just going to keep giving them to you. If you voice your opinion and say that you want to do something else, like I really want to take on this, this company who just went public or whatever the case, be a part of this IPO, they like people who volunteer and show initiative too, so.
If you start with the end in mind, so if you look at what an audit partner does or what a corporate controller does, like oftentimes what they're doing is they're trying to solve difficult problems about how to track income and expenses and how to correctly apply US GAAP, right? When you're applying tax law, you're looking at those same fact patterns and simply applying a different set of rules. And so in the end, whether you go into audit or tax, it's similar. You're using the same background data and then either deciding how to apply accounting rules or how to apply tax law, right? Both can be fabulous careers and people enjoy them.
I spent probably 7 or 8 years in audit when I first started. I mean, I enjoyed just being able to ask the client questions like, hey, tell me how this works, or tell me what's going on with this transaction, just the kind of curiosity. I never did tax, so I don't have anything really trusted to, but I enjoyed that. But then on the flip side, sometimes, you get the door shut in your face. They don't want to talk to you and that thing. But then that, to your point, is you kind of have to learn you need to get your information, so you have to figure out how to get it, right?
One of the things,
interrogation, like, I don't know, that's probably the wrong word, but you have to be somewhat friendly, right, to get your way in there.
finessing things for people, yeah.
And that happens a lot in corporate world, by the way, too, because there's a lot of silos and information is power, right? People oftentimes thought, whether it's you're auditing them or just working in big companies, they don't want to give up that information.
And for me, for IT audit, I did like the fact that I got to see a lot of the different systems out there. So from like Oracle, NetSuite, ServiceNow, any Atlassian product, or Jira or Confluence. I mean, these are, maybe you've heard of them, maybe you haven't, but you will if you go into any form of accounting eventually. And I got to see how they all really worked. And I thought that was pretty interesting to me. I had a couple programming courses that I took here, and that's how I kind of got aligned with the IT audit side. So I have experience with Python and R, so they liked that, and I was able to, use that to my advantage. Those are just 4 courses I took, and I graduated with my accounting degree, but they liked that I took those 4 courses with my accounting degree, and they found a niche spot for me to go into, and I moved out of it. But I'm going to be going back into it as a program manager, so it'll be a little different now, and I won't be doing the manual labor of it, filling out the reports and everything else, but I'll be reviewing them and helping improve processes. So that's a big plus for me, and more what I like to do, which is interact with people. So.
Oh, really good questions, by the way. Keep them coming. Yep.
I was just curious about something that we sometimes do not think about when we're looking at careers. What has been your work-life balance been like at the beginning of your career up until now?
Another good question.
My early career was when I worked the most hours. In large part because that's when I was the least efficient. You know, the more you know, the easier it is and the more you can get done in less time. And now, and I made some choices in region and company and industry in order to get a healthy balance. I'm not someone who enjoys being bored, so I am still somewhere where there's plenty of work to be done. But I have a lot of outside interests that I like a healthy balance. I like to not let that vacation accrual get too high, right? I like to see the world. And so I didn't feel like, you know, where I was early in my career was where I wanted to stay, but it's where, you know, cutting your teeth when I was younger and had more stamina and could do that was a great thing to do. I don't think I could physically handle it anymore, but yeah, some of that is just because I know more now, I don't have to worry that hard. How about you guys?
I would say I started, I mean, I'm very recent, 2 years in, right? So perfect person to ask the upfront question for that one. So starting off, it was pretty slow. It was maybe 45 hours a week. You know, that's slow, right? Wow, say that out loud. So 45 hours a week, and it was great. And it progressed, you know, got to about 55 plus towards the end of the year, 60 plus sometimes, maybe twice. Never worked a Saturday or a Sunday. In IT audit, assurance, that's a whole nother story. But now that I've kind of moved into the transformation design and execution, which is basically a fancy way of saying PMO, project management, just on a different level, or program management, it's way better now. Maybe 40 hours a week right now. And I volunteered to roll off of the client, which could be a big mistake, but I was getting bored. It was just not for me. I wasn't improving myself professionally or personally. I just found myself tied to the computer because it's still work from home is permitted. If you want, you can go to the office, but I don't want to. You know, why? I've been at this company for 2 years to not tell you where the office is. I think it's on 5th in Seattle. I think so. I will have to go into it. I actually they're flying me to LA for a meeting before I'll go to the Seattle office. So I'll see the LA office before I'll see the Seattle office. Kind of weird. But it depends on where you're at, right? So consulting is a little different. It ebbs and flows, but it's not as predictable as assurance or tax maybe, but it's very balanceable. And, you know, the more people who get hired on, if you have a bigger company or a bigger client, it makes it spread the workload out a lot more too. And it's a lot of good times. I enjoy it. I mean, 2 years in, I'm a senior. This is when you would usually get leaned on pretty heavily. I have a higher hour commitment that I have to give. I think it's just an average of 45 hours a week, but I also have unlimited PTO as long as there's nothing that needs to be delivered or any suspense dates, then I can go and do what I want. Other firms, probably not, you know what I mean? EY, everybody, but you know, every firm has their pros and cons, but I love it. And I'll be the first person to probably say this, but I don't want to be in accounting for the rest of my life. That's not who I am, but it's a means to get me to where I want to go. And so that might be the craziest thing you might hear, but if you want to be an accountant to do whatever you have to do to start your own business, which is where I want to go, then go for it. It'll give you great exposure and opportunity still, but you know, it helps. It's a great place to be, to have that opportunity. And I'm very grateful for that opportunity.
Accounting is the language of business, right?
Yeah.
So naturally.
Question piggybacking that comment, you saying your pathway of doing your job at EY is to get you in your own business. Would you suggest, like for my career goal is to have my own firm helping small business owners, but I'm still working, but would you suggest someone in that, like my standing, to start somewhere in working in public accounting or corporate accounting before doing that to get that more exposure, I guess you would say?
That's a tough question. I don't want to say one or the other, but I feel like I feel like there's the more exposure you can have, the better, right? And you might find that in public accounting, for instance, as a consultant, that you might that might be your whole job, is just that first phase. And I'm sorry, you were working for a
Nonprofit.
nonprofit, and then you helped take it to a certain phase, right? Like maybe that could be, you could be that subject matter expert on that, and that could be your specialty. And you don't have to worry about the rest of the reporting or whatever comes in, but that could be your niche in that fast-paced, cool environment or whatever. Or it couldn't be, but you could get exposed to the beginning all the way to the end for different clients and different, personality types and stuff, which I feel like could be beneficial. But if you're not at that place personally and you're just ready to go, then send it, go for it. That's me. Sorry. I'm all just, we only have these opportunities in the lifetime of the opportunity to take it. So if you don't want to just look back and say, I wish I did. That's just where I'm at.
So you've got a room full of students. Why should anyone here go work for each of your companies?
Limited PTO.
That means when you leave, they don't pay you out.
That is a true story.
Very true. It sounds good on the surface, but a lot of people are mad about it because they lost their banked PTO.
Yeah, at KPMG, we have 19 fixed holidays, like everybody gets that time off. And then you've got 20 something floating days that can be your personal days. So, are you gonna work hard? Yes. Are you gonna have time off? Yes. I'll tell you that in public accounting, you're going to learn more and more quickly than anywhere else. That's my opinion. And so if your goal is to launch your career very quickly, then public accounting is a great place to do that.
You're hard pressed to find anybody in public accounting who's homegrown, is what they would say, and that's just they've stayed at one office forever. So they will bounce, and there's some strategic reasons for that, but they will go from EY to KPMG because it's a different environment as well. They do things a little differently. There's still that one standard, right? But the way that they approach that standard across the finish line is different, and you might like it more than EY or Deloitte or maybe RSM. Or another, not outside of Big Four. They're a great company to work for as well. I did an internship with RSM and it was really amazing time, but it was in San Francisco and they offered me a position there and I just no way I could afford it as an undergrad.
For TrueBlue, like our mission as a company is to put people to work. We're largely a staffing company, whether it's gig labor or we also do hiring for big companies like that outsource their hiring. But majority of our business is gig labor. And a lot of what we're doing is helping, veterans, helping people with, maybe disabilities or that have trouble getting a job, get their foot in the door to somewhere. Maybe it's a lot of our positions. Yeah, it's a gig job that, you go drive a truck or forklift or dig a ditch or whatever, but it's kind of leading towards something else. So that's, we are a for-profit company, but a lot of what we do is helping people, whether it's, get into a position or get through some rough times, that sort of stuff. So with, we are a public company, like I mentioned, but having come from Disney, Disney is like a behemoth public company. So no matter how high, you get up there, you're still this little tiny fish in this massive pond or lake. Or ocean, I guess. With TrueBlue, we have a lot of the same, like we file 10Qs and 10Ks, and we have board of directors. But as a staff, at lower levels, entry levels, you kind of can see how it all fits together more, right? So if that's something that interests you, and you don't want to go the public accounting route, and you don't want to get swallowed by a big, massive company, I think it's a pretty good fit. Still big enough where you can still do different things. And have a good experience. That was the primary reason why I left Disney. Yeah, I was doing cool things, but I never sort of, I was a long way from this, from the corporate controller there.
I worked in a lot of different places around the country and in other countries, a lot of different, public and private. And debits and credits are the same no matter where you are, right? The difference I find is the people that you work with and the energy and the environment that you work in. And when I started interviewing for Tote, everyone that I was interviewing with would say, when I landed here, I felt like I hit a home run. And I was like, these guys are all saying the same thing. They've been told to say the same thing. Like, I see what's up here. But I came on board and I grew to understand what they were talking about, because we have such an amazing team. The quality of human beings that I work with have kept me there for 8 years, which I didn't think I would spend more than 5 years anywhere. That to me was just ludicrous. Why? That's just not how we do things anymore. And there was very little turnover, and the depth and breadth of the finance department was so strong that I was like, you know, I will always be learning. And as probably all of you, the thing that we love doing is to continue to grow and continue to learn. And it makes me nervous to be the smartest person in the room. I don't like it. And I'm at very low risk of that at Toad. So I have never been bored, and I enjoy going to work every day. I don't look at the clock. And to me, that's all I need to know. So you got to find your fit.
And you've heard some key points, like those points that Brandy made. Those are things you want to look for in a job. You want to look at how high is the turnover, right? And you want to look at, are you working for the smartest people that are going to help you grow? And, you know, do they have a cohesive team? Like all of those things, like when you're interviewing, you want to try to tease those things out, because those are the things that make you happy in a job. Where otherwise it can just be work, you know.
Yeah, every firm's got a little bit, you know, one of the things that I like a lot about UI is there's a lot of technology focus too. Now, I really like tech, so that's one of the big reasons I kind of align with UI. And they have a lot of diversity. I mean, everybody does. I have a lot of diversity inclusion groups. So I'm a member of the Veterans Network, and I'm one of the leads for the Seattle office. So I'm very passionate, and I was also the vice president of the Veterans Club here. So I'm passionate about helping veterans no matter where they are, no matter what. If anybody's a veteran, holler at me on LinkedIn. We'll take care of you however I can. Or related to a veteran, I'll take care of you too. So their network is strong, and they have a lot of events, and they pull in a lot of people. And I saw room for improvement too, because they weren't coming to the University of Washington Tacoma. So I brought them here. I tried my own. You know, I'm still going to keep going. It's not going to work. It's not going to stick right away. I tried doing it in the middle of COVID timeframe, and nobody wanted to even get on Zoom. You know, so there was more facilitators than there were people who wanted to learn. So, but it's going to change. And for me, it was all about the Veterans Network and the D&I groups. And one other one, so I'm sorry, I'm gonna keep going. There's a really awesome volunteer program that we have at UI, and I know every firm does too. It's called UI Ripples, and it's just kind of like a pool of different things that you can volunteer with and through. And I've done the After School All-Stars program, which is a really cool program for at-risk middle schoolers during that time of day when traditionally bad things happen when you're in middle school, right? And so I taught digital music production. After my work hours, I'd log on for an hour with these middle school kids, and we would make beats. And it was amazing. I loved it. And I've never had that opportunity anywhere else before. And I was just kept going and going and going. So I did 6 months straight of it. And they're just kind of worried, like, do you have capacity for this? Like, you're gonna reach burnout here soon. And it just kept, you know, work was work, but working with the kids and seeing their faces light up when they make a song, you know, it was worth it, worth all of it. And it just kind of washed away whatever bad was from the day from work, you know, which I feel like you can get that anywhere from any firm, hopefully. Just one of the things that I look for.
Over here, do you have another question?
Yeah, for those of us that are having completed internships or are about to, what do you all look at, or what are you looking for with your looking at internships? What kind of qualities or what kind of background are you looking for?
We touched on it a little bit earlier, but that intellectual curiosity is gold.
Okay.
I think it's difficult to go from being a good student where we're taught to get an A, to get the right answer. And there is a right answer, of course. I just have to figure out what it is. And, you know, in being conditioned to look good, that's not important after you graduate. What's important is, in our case, you know, ensuring the financial integrity of the statements, you know, it's asking good questions, learning how to take what's obvious and dig a little bit, make sure that it holds up. So I would say intellectual curiosity would be one thing. You guys think?
Resiliency, I would say. You probably wouldn't have too much exposure to like hard case scenarios when you're in internship. But when you come out of that role and you know, join the professional workforce, it's not always going to be the easiest thing. You might get told to do something a couple different times and it might seem like someone's being mean to you, but they're not. You know, it's just their way of communicating. And if you have questions, you know, reach out and ask those questions and be involved as you possibly can. And that just shows that you're not just there to, you know, collect a paycheck or to check a box. You're there to learn, you're there to grow, and the teams will pick you up and they'll call you back. They'll bring you back.
We want people who are excited to be there working, right? Like motivated, driven. So when you show up to work, you're not just logging in and waiting for things to come to you. You're reaching out to people. You know, what can I help you with? What can I do? I'll do anything. What can I do, right? You're there, like in an internship, you're there to have experiences. You're there to absorb as much as possible. And, you know, we want people that are driven to do that. And you can show a lot of that in the interview. You know, when you're applying for an internship, like read everything you can about the company, go through their website, you know a little bit about their culture, try to find out if you can, if in your network, you might have somebody who worked there previously, but do the things that show the interviewer, hey, I'm the go-getter that's going to do really good work for you.
Being proactive versus reactive. It's a big one.
And to Jake's earlier point, not taking things too personally, we train by way of what are called review comments. And when you are fresh, you get like, back in my day, there were legal pads and they were handwritten notes. And sometimes like you get a full page or two of review comments and you look at it and be like, well, I was the top of my class. Like, what's this? I'm an idiot now? It's like, no, this is how you learn. So when you get pushback, when you get criticism, take it as a learning opportunity, not, you know, a personal slight.
This might sound weird, but I still need to perfect it right now, but one of the things that I wish I had spent more time focusing on in school was how to take the right notes, the right kind of notes, the right relevant type of notes. I find myself when I started off, I would just dictate a call. Like I have no idea what to take a note of, so I'm just going to type real fast and I'm going to get everybody's comments and what everybody's talking about. And then there'll be no reason for any of that, no need for that. You know, there might just be one action item that came out of that call and it was just schedule another call or something. And I'm sitting there stressing out, not knowing what I'm supposed to do, you know, and you can ask about that too, like whoever you're working with or on an internship, right? Like your senior, your supervisor, whoever it is, can ask them for their style. Like, how do you like to see notes? How do you like to see this? How do you like to see that? Can I see an example that I could kind of run with and go from there? And that really helps out. But yeah, note taking, it sounds weird, but it really is. If you can be a really efficient note taker and learn how to take the relevant and the right stuff out of there, it'll save you a lot of time, Because you can't record a lot of calls for whatever, I mean, there's reasons behind the scenes, but if you're in a client call, you can't record it most of the time, unless it's baked into like the statement of work somewhere, but which makes it difficult to look back and then your manager or somebody's asking you a question about the call, but you missed the note or whatever, or you took the wrong note. And it can, you know, for me personally, it feels like I let them down, and that's what drives me to do better. So I don't want to let my team down because I know that my team is supporting me too. So
It would have been fun to be an intern at Disney.
Got free park passes. So maybe time for one more question.
Maybe I'll ask two. How does one get to learn both state and local, federal and international taxes? What does one have to do to learn all of that? And the other question was, are there other certifications apart from CPA that are helpful?
Yeah, so it sounds like a tax focused question. So as a. So if you wanted to learn all of those things, most of the time you're gonna be transferring between different groups, right? You're not gonna learn all of those in a year. You're not gonna learn all of those in 2 years. They're very different, like there's different sections of the law and there's different reports. So some of that you can do by just raising your hand and saying, hey, I want to work on a state tax project. I want to work on a federal tax project. I want to work on an international tax project. And you can get little pieces of experience from doing that. If you want real depth of experience, you actually have to transfer groups, which within accounting firms is not hard. You just have to say, hey, I do great work and I'm really interested in learning more about international tax. Can I do a 6-month rotation in international tax? And we'll absolutely do that. And so like there's a woman in our Seattle KPMG office, Mina, she said, I want to do an international tax rotation. So we said, yep, we transferred her as a senior from the federal tax practice to the international tax practice. She did that for 6 months and then she raised her hand again and said, I want to keep doing it for another 6 months. There's more I have to learn. And so you can really drive where you want your career to go from place to place to place if you show that you are a top performer in any of those areas. It sounds like you switched around quite a bit. So
I loved international tax. It was so cool. State and local tax and ITax are very different creatures, right? So you can work in, I work in state and local tax by virtue of the fact that I am in a business, right? But ITax is a unique beast and you kind of have to go to a large firm for that. But within public accounting, I thought the ITax was the most fascinating because you get just the craziest stories sometimes. Like we would have contractors from Afghanistan who needed our help on something, but then we also needed fancy shoemakers to do a transfer pricing project. It's just so unique. I have a bit of a love affair with ITax.
All right, well, thank you. Really, really great questions. And thank you for not making me read all the 10 questions I had scripted off here just in case. So thank you. Thank all of our panelists for joining us as well. And thank you to you all. So with that, I think we'll close it down and send you on your way. I think there's a networking event, right? Is that correct? Okay. Thank you, guys.
Feel free.